New tropical cyclone possibilities near Madagascar on today's Tropical Weather Bulletin. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for March 23rd. Well, we've still got Cyclone Neville putting on a show over the southern Indian Ocean. It's hanging on to hurricane equivalent status, and we are still code blue right now. Not for Neville, but for a new system that looks like it's going to form, or the chances are rising at least, near Madagascar later next week. It's 69 days until Atlantic hurricane season begins, and there's no areas of interest in the tropics, although the US is getting a bit of a hammering along the east coast this morning with a broad frontal system that caused some tornado worries yesterday evening in southern Florida. 52 days until hurricane season in the eastern Pacific, and it's very quiet here. No areas of interest to speak of course, and only a little bit of even cloudiness and thunderstorms down in the doldrums of the tropics. Over to the western Pacific, and it's a similar picture actually. Very little going on there, just a few thunderstorms over Micronesia towards Guam, and into the North Indian Ocean there's a few clouds there south of Sri Lanka and southwestern India. So the activity is in the southern hemisphere. We've got Cyclone Neville, there it is, well off the coast of Australia by now of course, and is still moving in a westerly direction, and there's nothing else over the Australian region. The remnants of Megan are really dead now, just a few thunderstorms blowing up over the northern part of the country. And towards the southwest Indian Ocean, which Neville is tracking towards, we've got this 40% area of interest now that we've designated to the northeast of Madagascar. It's actually pretty much over Agalega right now, one of the southernmost islands of the Seychelles, and that will be generally moving southwestwards and possibly southwards later on. Nothing in the southern Pacific. Very quiet here, just a few thunderstorms blowing up along the equator and maybe a little system there near Fiji and Tonga. So let's do our due diligence and look at Neville right now. Really nothing to show you on the map because it is so far out to sea. It is 980 kilometers from the Cocos Islands, 1698 from Christmas Island, 2143 from Exmouth, 2469 from Isle Amsterdam, and 2563 from Perth. So certainly no threat to Australia at this point, or indeed anywhere else. Certainly no inhabited locations, and it will start moving towards the southwest fairly soon. Well, it already is actually, as we'll see on the satellite imagery, and here it is. So there's Neville, really starting to turn southwest as mentioned. Still looking decent. The northeastern side though is struggling. Looks like it might be being sheared, or maybe it's dry air. I reckon it's probably wind shear, and it's starting to really sweep more in a southerly direction. It will get pulled by another frontal system, and a very large extratropical cyclone is expected to come out of some of Neville's energy along with another system to its south. But looking decent on that satellite imagery still. This is the southwest Indian Ocean. A brief look at that system there over the Seychelles. We'll come back to that in a moment. But first of all, looking at more imagery of Neville. There it is. It's actually showing a little bit more on that eye in the last few frames. Some convection blowing up really down the south and southwestern side, but you'll see on the water vapor imagery there's very little to talk about on its northeastern side, and that really is a hallmark of wind shear right there, especially as you look at the jagged banding on the left hand side, but still looking at some decent cloud tops, a few areas into the minus 70s, and certainly no problem with its rotation and its microwave appearance. It's looking still pretty decent and certainly good enough to have category 1 status. Now this is 95S, the tag for it. It's over Agalega, that sort of line-shaped island there to the south, and it will be producing very heavy rainfall over this region, which could cause serious issues actually. because we're expecting this system to move very slowly at first and then move more subtly. There's a quick look at what's going on in the United States right now. That big band really drenching the East Coast, the Mid-Atlantic and North Carolina, and extending southwards. You can see through the Forster T website a live look at the eastern US radar picture, and you can see everything that's going on there, with some more showers still for the Florida Keys. Sea surface temperatures look like this, cooling even further a little bit there in the equatorial region of the eastern Pacific. It's looking pretty likely now that we're going to get a La Nina on the way. In the Atlantic, it's just lost a little bit of progress there, but still a little slither of 26 degrees Celsius waters off the coast of Florida. In the western Pacific, still looking like it's getting better as well. Some areas of 26 degrees waters reaching the coast of Taiwan now, and that's to be expected. It is going to be growing throughout the year now. In the North Indian Ocean, once again those temperatures reaching the coast now of Bangladesh, and really warm waters further south, over 30 degrees Celsius, particularly in the Andaman Sea. No real surprise, but that's what it looks like. The Southwest Indian Ocean, very warm off Madagascar to the west, and to a lesser extent to the east. Temperatures still looking piping hot, over 30 degrees Celsius up there, and around 27 to 28 degrees Celsius down to Mauritius. Off the coast of Western Australia, still very warm. You can see 1 or 2 cool spots though further west though from recent storms, and also the Gulf of Carpentaria, despite Megan, is still looking very good at over 30 degrees Celsius. The Coral Sea also looking decent, near 30 degrees, and a similar story north of Fiji, extremely warm. Look at that pool there right now through Samoa. It is probably 32 degrees there, over quite a large area around Fiji, still looking good, and Vanuatu. Compared to average, it looks like this. The orange zones are above, the blue zones are below. Western Pacific not too far from average. Eastern Pacific mainly warm, but a few cool spots there as well. North Indian Ocean a little bit cooler than average in the Bay of Bengal. Southwest Indian Ocean looking good compared to average, and the Australian region is a little bit cooler than average, especially towards the west after recent storms. Coral Sea though still looking very good indeed. Oceanic heat content also has a lot to say about the Coral Sea, especially off the coast of the Cape York Peninsula. Some yellows there which are looking really good for potential rapid intensification if a storm ends up there. The Western Pacific also starting to increase in some of its values as well near Guam, and also extending further east towards the Marshall Islands. The Eastern Pacific too also getting more green in there, which really shows that the conditions are getting more favourable. Let's check the GFS computer model then, and we'll show you exactly what we're worried about with this Southwest Indian Ocean system. GFS is very bullish on its forecast there. Doesn't move very much, but intensifies to maybe category 3, maybe pushing category 4 status there within 5 days. Other models aren't so keen, although they have low pressure system and possibly a tropical depression. So we're giving it a 40%, but if the GFS had its say, it would be like 90%, but it isn't at the moment. And there's Neville moving southwesterly, cruising in that direction there, and then it gets pulled around about the 25th by a really humongous extratropical storm there with very strong winds moving southeastwards. Well beyond the Australian shores, but watch again as Neville gets sucked into this big area here. Enormous, look at that, and very strong winds in there as well, briefly reaching 100 miles per hour plus as it sweeps down towards Antarctica. Now pay attention to this, because the rainfall expectations are extremely high from the GFS, and that carries more weight because even in weaker storms, anything that stalls can produce enormous amounts of rain. Along the east coast of Madagascar as well, watching out for that rainfall expectation there. It doesn't quite go long enough, this loop, to reach the Mascarene Islands. That's why the values are very low there. But look at that, over 50 inches near where this system could be stalling. Along the coast of Madagascar, maybe up to 23 inches there as well. That's nearly 600 millimeters there. And for some of the Seychelles, potentially higher than that, maybe getting above well towards 1,000 millimeters in 1 or 2 spots, maybe, although it should be out at sea. Well, in the longer range, the moderate range, we get to take a look at day 5 to 10, and this storm holds real strong as it starts to curve southeastwards, and it blows through the gap between Mauritius and Reunion as a powerful storm in the 950s millibars, and probably there a category 3 on the Saffir Simpson scale. So a very powerful storm moving through, certainly not in concrete at all yet. That's why it's only code blue on Ticos. If we were more confident, I imagine those chances and our alert level would be higher. Just watch it closely. And what's this? The South Atlantic, a potential system there in the moderate range as well that the GFS is spewing out off the coast of Brazil, moving southeastwards. A short-lived system, doesn't really pack very much wind. I think it's more on the rain side that it looks impressive, but you can see its signature starting to move southeasterly there. Looks tropical to me, something to watch maybe. That's all the serious stuff done. Scan the barcode and that will take you through to the Force 13 merch store, where you can take a look at all our items as well as our full season and individual storm animations on request. And are still waiting for a Hone t-shirt. Has anyone found it yet? We might have to offer a reward. Well, let's move on to the silly range, and let's not take this seriously, although there isn't too much to worry about in the silly range. This system's cleared Mauritius obviously, and actually has a second wind down there in the lower latitudes eastwards, and then starts to turn south again around about the 5th of April, and then really turning towards the southeast as a very powerful extratropical cyclone. Of course, this is very long range, so it's speculative, and this track may not verify at all. It really depends on what happens earlier in its life with its stalling motion. Obviously really ramps up that uncertainty about where it will go. Weak steering currents, no doubt. On this day, March 23rd, 1985, Cyclone Sandy, one of the most powerful landfalls actually in the Gulf of Carpentaria. A category 4 there, 140 miles per hour at peak, and that occurred at 6Z on this day, 6 a.m. UTC, which would have been in the afternoon hours in Australia, and eventually made landfall very close to where Megan made landfall recently, although a little bit further west. It then trawled inland and then pushed out the western coast of Australia and had a little bit of a second life over there as well. So back to today, and 1985, 39 years ago. Wow. The first name in the Atlantic naming list is Alberto. In the Eastern Pacific, it's Aletta, and in the Central Pacific, it is Hone. Feels like we've been waiting since 1985 for that goddamn storm. In the Western Pacific, the next name is Iwiniar, the North Indian Ocean. It's Rimal. We're at 12 storms so far this year, which is quite low actually, but a few of them have shown their worth. Neville coming out of the blue there, recent example. Reaching a high in category 3, Olga, the next named storm in the Australian region, Gamane in the Southwest Indian Ocean, and in the South Pacific it is Peter. That's all from today's Tropical Weather Bulletin. We'll be back again tomorrow.